Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv. Emma's still taking a break from recording, and we are your PsycKicks. All right, guys, back by popular demand. Are you excited for another listener story? If not, I'm sorry. Hopefully you are, because I am. If you guys are new to the show, my name's Liv. I'm a psychic medium. My best friend Em, who's usually here, is also a psychic medium, and we're your sidekicks to all things metaphysical, paranormal, spiritual, and in between, because we say so. And in listener stories, similarly to other listener stories, if you are excited about the podcast realm and listen to it avidly like I do, we tell your stories, the listeners, but with a twist, because as psychic mediums, we give insight into the paranormal happenings of your stories. Are you ready? Great. Let's go. Today, we have another story by Erin S. Erin was featured in one of our YouTube listener stories, so if you want to go check that out, there'll be a link in the show notes. But she submitted a hilarious story about a cream saver, and now she has another one on Abe Lincoln, and I'm real excited to share this with you. Okay, Erin says, first off, a big thank you to Liv for sharing my cream saver Heimlich maneuver story and validating that it was divine intervention. I heard Liv talk about how much she likes Abe Lincoln, so I figured she would enjoy this story as well. And I can tell you, Erin, I am going to, because I do love Abe Lincoln. There's a lot to it, so I will try to keep it to a minimum, which, if you're thinking about submitting a listener story, not only is there a link in the show notes to do that, but please do not keep it to a minimum. I love as much detail as humanly possible. Get jiggy with it when you're writing these stories, because I absolutely love it. Erin says, I really like Abe Lincoln too. I wanted to read a biography of him, so a guy I dated bought one for me. The guy ended up ghosting me, no pun intended. So I took his book to a psychic hoping she'd be able to tell me something about my ex. Instead, she said I had a strong affinity for Abe Lincoln. I was very surprised. Not long after that, I had a past life regression and it came out that my husband and I were friends with the Lincolns. It was cool, but not something that could have been validated, or so I thought. Not long after the regression, I was hanging out with some psychic friends to practice readings, and I got the name Clara. It didn't mean anything to anyone, and I shrugged it off. Later, I had a thought that I should Google Abe Lincoln friend Clara. I wasn't expecting to find much, if anything. Needless to say, I was shocked when I found out that a woman named Clara Harris Rothbone was not only friends with the Lincolns, but she was in the booth when Lincoln was shot. I could not believe it. Dude, I can't believe that either. That's crazy. I read a bio about Clara, and she was tragically murdered by her alcoholic husband on December 23rd. This sent chills down my spine because my birthday is December 23rd. I just knew I was Clara in a past life. I have a feeling I'm still connected to Lincoln in this life because several years ago, during a week of panic attacks, I kept seeing Lincoln stuff. More recently, during a Reiki session, the practitioner mentioned that I have some big names on my spirit guide team. Immediately, I blurted out, "Is one of them Abe Lincoln?" She confirmed that he was, and he stepped forward during the session. She said Lincoln helps me with leadership in this lifetime. The following day, I saw 3 signs of Lincoln within a few hours. This was too big of a coincidence for me to dismiss. My Reiki practitioner said I brought issues from Clara's life into this life to heal. I always wondered why, out of all the past lives I've had, this is the one I learned about in this lifetime. Now I know. I hope you enjoyed my story. Thanks for reading. I know it was kind of long. Take care, Erin. It was not long at all. I enjoyed it, and I'm super excited about it. All right, let's break it down. First of all, you took an Abe Lincoln book to a psychic to get some dirt on your ex? I don't know how I feel about that. Sometimes in readings, I have people ask me about, like, magic and witchcraft and stuff that's done on them by their exes, and I hope, Erin, that you're not one of those people. Doesn't sound like it, but also it's a little sus. So anyways, that's just that on that. But I feel like there is an essence of Abe Lincoln. I'm not going to completely poo-poo on your spirit guide idea of him being a spirit guide for you. God, I never talked to Lincoln. I feel like I'm too much of a fangirl to do so. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I I feel like he is a guide of some sort for you. Whether I feel endowed enough, capable enough to confirm nor deny if he's like a spirit guide. I mean, okay, let me break it down a little bit more. Because again, I feel like his essence, and when I mean essence, I mean like leadership values are here to help guide you. That I 100% agree about, which is why I'm like, maybe an aspect of his soul helps guide you in a spirit guide way. But when we have spirit guides, if you're new to the podcast, your spirit guides are spiritual entities, whether souls or beings, that help guide you in your physical incarnation. And they are spirits or souls that your soul chose to help guide you in this incarnation. So they could be past lives or souls that you've met before or had relationships with in a past life. So that is not far-fetched to say that Abe Lincoln is one of your spirit guides. Am I kind of jealous? Fudge, yes. So yeah, I feel like he is a spirit guide for you, and I'm really jelly about it. So I feel like I can't confirm nor deny it because I'm not that cool, but I'm also not going to be like, that's not real, because process of elimination and like how spirit guides work, it makes a lot of sense. Anyways, okay. So your past life is Clara. 100% on board for that. I don't know what Clara looks like, but there's a woman that has medium-ish to dark brown hair. She has it pulled back, and she's wearing like, the big dress skirts and like, I don't know, crinoline. I don't think that's the right word. I don't know anything about clothes, but like the big poofy dresses that they wore back then because she was a higher society class. Her hair's pulled back. She has earrings, and her eyes are brown. But she says they're not dark brown. They're like a lighter brown, almost a hazel-ish. And she says that there's a lot of things that she didn't get to do necessarily when she was alive, and a lot of stuff that her soul wants to embark on. See, one of the things that kind of is like a pet peeve for me right now, which might change about past lives, is that we need to know and understand and do all of this stuff about past lives in order to understand the life that we're in now. But for me, understanding and knowing that much about your past lives to try and sort of like control and understand the life that you're living now is almost as if you were trying to cognitively understand and control. I think it's called peristalsis, which is the way that your brain subconsciously just knows how to make your intestines and like the insides of your body move. Like it's something that you don't, like you have your sympathetic and parasympathetic brain functions. It would be like trying to understand the brain functions that you don't have to physically think about, like blinking. Blinking is not something you think about. And neither is like your inside intestinal movements. That is not something that you consciously have to think about because it is just a part of you. Trying to understand, in my opinion, your past lives and how it plays out into now and really try to analyze and understand it is not some of the shadow work that I feel like people should be thinking about, because it's like trying to understand and consciously move parts of your physical body that is just already attuned to you. It's a part of you, and your life is going to play out based on the things that you need to understand and learn in this life that you may not have been as well-rounded or understood in your past lives, whether it's your most recent to your very first primordial soul past life. But that's just my opinion. Take that what you will, because I know opinions can smell. Everyone has one, and they usually stink like a fart. But that's my fart of an opinion for past lives. I mean, it's also just way too uncanny that you both have December 23rd, like death day birthdays. That goes into the whole idea of past lives and how things are really connected. Em and I did a video on past lives, and it's one of the people that we covered. I forget. He was a pilot. And then there was a boy that knew everything about planes in this guy's life, and they even had the same name type of thing. So it's one of those things it feels like. But anyways, I 100% appreciate your story, Erin. It was great again, which is why I shared another one of your stories. But we're going to move on to the next story, which is by Tori D. Tori's story is titled, "My Mom Might Be a Medium / Sensitive to the Spiritual World." Dude, same. I'm excited to read your story because my mom is also a psychic medium, and it's always fun to like compare notes, if you will, when it comes to receiving spiritual information. All right, Tori says, Hi, I'm a huge fan of you both and wanted to share a story that recently happened to my mom, Kathy, and wanted your feedback. I'm excited. I hope you and Kathy listen to this. Tori says, my aunt, my mom's sister, has recently been going through some health issues which led her to heart failure and being stuck in the hospital. I'm so sorry. I hope she's getting better by the time I read this. A week before we found out, my mom kept hearing the sound of my deceased cousin, the daughter of my aunt who passed from cancer, saying, Aunt Kathy, which of course my mom had a hard time believing if it was real or not, or if she was just losing it. After a few more yells, my mother saw a vision of my cousin telling her that my aunt needed help. She even showed my mother, my aunt, sitting under a dark cloud with a door that was opening right next to her. To me, it was as if my cousin was showing my mom that my aunt was on that fine line between life or death, if that makes sense. Then she showed my mom the number 25 and also the year 2025, which later we came to find out my aunt was sent to the hospital on February 25th, which I believe my cousin showed my mother 2025, maybe because she wanted to let her know that if my aunt doesn't start taking care of herself, that may be the year she won't make it past. My cousin also let my mom know that she was the only person she could communicate with because no one else was as spiritually open as my mom was. My mom and I have recently been researching and have always been so interested in the afterlife, and I'm wondering maybe since my mom has been opening herself up more, could this lead to her receiving more signs from spirits? Ever since that day, she has been seeing and hearing more things. Could she be some sort of medium but never knew? I would love to hear if my loved ones or spirit guides can connect with you and give us some answers. Thanks. Tori. All right, Tori, we're going to break it down. I'm going to start by saying that it is my opinion. M does not share this opinion, but I do not think that everyone is a medium. Does everyone have psychic abilities? Yes, because we all have our 5 physical senses and our 6 metaphysical senses, which are synonymous to our 5 physical senses, with the exception of the 6th sense of claircognizance being equatable to your physical sense of instinct. But those 6 psychic senses are portrayed or received in similar ways to how you perceive the physical world using your 5 physical senses. So everyone, I believe, can have psychic abilities, but the delineation between psychic and medium is different. I have a blog post on our website if you're interested in reading it. However, a lot of people also ask me, well, I didn't know I was a psychic medium, so if I'm learning that I'm a psychic medium at X age, whether it be 8, 10, 50, 60, 30, 40, whatever, isn't everyone able to be a psychic medium? And the way I'm able to understand it and explain it through my spirit guides is that you are born a psychic medium, but when you're able to understand or learn that you're a psychic medium, that your abilities transcend into mediumship and not just psychic abilities, can happen at any time. That's different for everyone. For me, it was when I was a child. My mother, she was also a child. M didn't learn or understand that she was a psychic medium until she was older, because it's all about that ego, your sociocultural perception of who you are and your place within the physical world. So I feel like a lot of people have the ability to understand that they're a medium, but it can happen at different points in your life. For whatever reason, Tori, your mom is learning that she is a medium later in life. So it seems, based on what you say, that she is clairaudient because she heard your cousin saying, Aunt Kathy. Clairaudience is the psychic ability of hearing. She also had all 3 tenses, which to be a medium, you need all 3 psychic tenses of past, present, future. So she was talking to your cousin who is in the past during the present about future things or possibilities. You also said that your mom saw a vision from your cousin as well. That would be clairvoyance, which is psychic seeing. And the fact that it was about the future is precognition. So that's future events. And it's super, super freaking cool. The next thing I want to talk about is if your mom is a medium, which it sounds like she has mediumship capabilities, she's now discovering. I'm sure as she discovers more about herself and her abilities, she's going to be like, oh man, I used to do this when I was a little kid. Or this happened and I didn't even think it was paranormal. I just thought everyone did that. Because that's usually how mediums figure out that they're, from at least from my experience, from talking to people, that's how they figure out they're mediums. They thought normal things are not actually normal and that people don't always experience seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling things that aren't actually there, that end up having meaning to the physical world that is only coming from the spiritual world. But what I wanted to say is, if you are a medium and you're listening, or if you are a psychic and you're listening, or if you're neither, that is up to you. That's the thing. You don't have to use your psychic abilities or mediumship capabilities in any way, shape, or form, because they have been given to you by source, creator, God, whatever you want to call it, to accentuate every aspect of your life. So, for example, if you are a teacher, I'm sure if you're a teacher and you have psychic or mediumship capabilities, that doesn't mean that you have to be a professional psychic or medium, because those intuitive abilities, those psychic and medium abilities are helping you become and be the best teacher, banker, nurse, rock star, whatever that you could possibly be. It's just helping bring out the best qualities in you. So I hope that helps. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. If you learn that you're a psychic or a medium, you can just keep on keeping on. Okay, next story. This story was sent in by a patron, and I did not know that they sent it in, but I know your name. So Zal, thank you for sending in this story. I think I've read one of your stories before, but if you don't know, if you are a PsycKicks patron, then you get listener story priority. So your stories will have more probability of being shared on a podcast or YouTube video. So thank you, Zal. Zal's story is titled Dreams, Ghosts, or Other Supernatural Stuff. Zal says, so I've got 3 stories here to do with the space between sleeping and being awake. I used to just write these off as dreams, but thanks to PsycKicks, thanks, I began to question what really happened and if these really were just dreams. Story 1. This takes place when I was a kid in my childhood home. I had just gone to bed and I'm not sure if I was sleeping or just about to fall asleep. But as I was laying there, my cat opens my door and hops onto my bed. Not thinking anything of it, I get up, kick him out of my room, and lay back down. As I'm laying there, my brain kicks in and I realize my door was shut. I didn't want my cat sleeping on my bed for reasons, so I made sure my door was shut each night. I knew I had shut my door and there was no way he could have gotten in. As I laid there longer, I began questioning if it had really even happened or if I had just all dreamed it. Also, later in the night, I heard my room door open and someone put something on my shelf right by my door. When I woke up the next morning, I looked on my shelf and nothing was there. I asked both my parents if they had put anything on my shelf, and they both said that they hadn't. Now, I don't believe this was paranormal, but I vividly remember these things happening, but evidence points to it having just been a dream. Story number 2. This happened when I was in college and living at my aunt's house. Now, dreams never really frightened me anymore. Not like when I was a kid and I'd have dreams of falling out of bed and then getting chased by the mac and cheese dinosaur. Wait, what? The mac and cheese dinosaur? Like a dinosaur made of mac and cheese? Or I'm thinking that it's because you can get dinosaur-shaped mac and cheese. There's like a T-Rex shaped one that was chasing you. That's what I see, but if you're listening, Zal, in the PsycKicks YouTube's Extras channel, you should comment which type of macaroni dinosaur it was, like a dinosaur made of macaroni or the cutout shape from the dinosaur macaroni, because I need to know. Zal says, now dreams never really frightened me anymore, not like when I was a kid and I'd have dreams of falling out of bed and then getting chased by the mac and cheese dinosaur, then waking up and not being able to fall asleep. I have scary dreams, but I can usually just fall back asleep right away. Not this time. This truly scared me, and it took place in merely a matter of seconds. I woke up from sleeping, and when I opened my eyes, I saw above my bedroom window what looked like a cocoon, but the cocoon was made of mummy wrapping. I instantly jumped out of bed and turned on the light. When I looked back at the spot where it was no longer there. My heart was racing, and I couldn't turn off my lights and go back to sleep. I was too scared. This was about 4 a.m. I ended up staying up till my aunt got back, which was about when the sun came up. So about an hour later, I finally turned off the lights and laid back down, but that was when it hit me. It was too dark to have seen the cocoon, and I remember every detail of it. I also remember being able to see the color of my wall, but now as I was looking at it, even with the sun starting to come up, I couldn't make out the door. So I wrote it off and just figured it was a dream. Even now, I'm hoping it was just a dream, but I've definitely still questioned it to this day. Story number 3. This happened recently. I was taking a nap in my current home and had just woken up. I remembered opening my eyes and adjusting my blankets, so I know I was awake. I had shut my eyes, and when I opened them again, I saw a person laying next to me. It was a young, handsome male with black, shaggy hair. He was laying on his back, sleeping. I jumped up mainly because I didn't expect to see someone next to me, and he was gone in an instant. It didn't scare me at all. I was just thrown off guard with him being there in the first place, but what did make me uncomfortable was what happened after. As I was sitting in bed processing what had just happened, I was looking around the room and getting face pareidolia. If you guys don't know what pareidolia is, it is when you see faces or human-like shapes in inanimate objects. So, for example, like a knot in the tree looks like a human face. A potato chip looks like Jesus. Things like that. That's pareidolia. So Zal says, as I was sitting in bed processing what had just happened, and as I was looking around the room, I was getting face pareidolia. Everywhere I looked, I was seeing faces and bodies, even though I knew they were just normal everyday objects. For example, my sweater, when I was seeing it, all I could see was something standing there. In order to get it to stop, I ended up just getting out of bed and leaving the room. I don't know what any of these experiences were. I know they weren't anything really paranormal, but I also no longer believe that they were just dreams. Okay, Zal, let's break it down. Story number 1, where you talk about having to get up to close the door because the cat came in, as well as someone placing something on the shelf. What spirit tells me immediately is when you closed your door for your cat to come in, they show me that your cat was like, you close the door, but I have a door, like, for example, in my office. If I close it, I have to pull up on the door to hear it lock. Otherwise, it looks like it's closed, but my cat will just push it open. And I'm like, how does the door keep opening? I thought for a while that it was paranormal, honestly. And then I figured out that the door just sits a little off kilter and it doesn't move the little clicky doodle into the hinge. So I have to pull up on it in order for it to engage. So that is what they show me what happened for your cat being able to push open the door and you just didn't realize it. As far as the person opening the door to put something on your shelf, I feel like this was a sort of sleep paralysis, but I don't think you were paralyzed. I think it was just a wakeful sleepness that your brain was thinking about the door opening. So when you remember it, your brain sort of concocted this thing. So sleep paralysis is also something that I've been diving into a little bit because so many people put a lot of paranormal instances on it, which I think you can have a paranormal instance because there are dark, negative energy things, low vibrational entities that would like to scare you to get energy off of you. However, as a scientific person that enjoys science as well as the paranormal and spooky things, I was learning that sleep paralysis can be caused by not just sleep deprivation, but also just weird sleep patterns. So if you're someone that works like third shift or swing shifts, or someone that has a hard time sleeping sometimes due to insomnia or other types of things, I don't know. I've been having a lot of sleep interruptions as well. Even if you go to bed, say at like 9 o'clock, if your sleep is interrupted or you have insomnia or you take a certain medication to sleep, a lot of these things like that can cause weird, wacky dreams, sleep paralysis, and also like the hypnopompic hallucinations. So with hypnopompic hallucinations, I don't think you have to be paralyzed, which is like your body going, I don't know what's happening, and like short circuiting. But it's having hallucinations or seeing things even though you feel like you're lucid or awake. But it's the fact that your brain is in a sleep cycle, but your eyes are open. So instead of seeing it behind your eyelids, you're seeing it with your eyes open type of thing. So I feel like your brain was freaked out from the instance with your cat, and you created your brain, I don't mean to say like you, but your brain created that idea of, oh, someone's putting something on the shelf type of thing. But I don't necessarily see it as a paranormal instance. And that is for story 1. Now, when it comes to story 2 is when you saw the cocoon above your bed. This one I want to say is another like practical thing where you can say it's like sleep paralysis, hypnopompic hallucinations, whatever. But I'm feeling like it's not with my mediumship head. I feel like whatever it is that you saw, you really did see something weird. I don't know what the cocoon is. I'm sorry, I'm asking. There's this like red spirit guide that steps forward. that's masculine, and then there's another one that steps forward that's feminine, and they say that you were projecting stuff from like your own dreamscape, which again, you could argue is your brain making stuff up, but they tell me that it was spiritual in nature, which is why you were able to see your room in color. I don't know if it was like an astral projection type thing, which is why you could see your room in color, because you were in a space where you were there, but also it was more spiritual. That's what they tell me. It was like a projection of some sort of spiritual space as an overlay to wherever you were in your room. I hope that makes sense. Kind of like when you were in school and the teacher would have the projection screen of like math problems, and then they would write on a clear screen the answers or like how to work out the math problems and then put it over. Whatever you were seeing with the colors on your wall and the cocoon over your bed was your spiritual overlay of whatever you were doing in the real world. That is what your spirit guides tell me. As much as I want to say that it was scientifically related, they say that it is spiritually fueled more indefinitely than the first story. Okay, the third story was that you saw someone laying next to you and then had really bad pareidolia. I definitely think that you saw a person just Jay Tilla next to you. I feel like they were just a spiritual floater, if you will. And then you had pareidolia after it. Like your brain really, I can understand why you feel like these events are spiritual and scientific, because I feel like they very much are. Your brain really is good at visualizing things without your consent, I guess. But there was like a spiritual drifter that was next to you. And because you saw the spiritual drifter, your brain went into overdrive and was like, oh my God, we're going to make everything look like a person, which can be problematic, I would suppose. A lot of people ask me, side note, but related, that if they see shadow figures, they'll start to see more shadow figures like out of the corner of their eye and their peripheral vision. And that can be, yes, you're seeing shadow figures, but because it freaks you out, your brain is going to start making more like weird ones in the background too. So then it gets into that like touchy area of, am I seeing things or am I projecting my brain onto things? And then it can be a little bit of both. So I feel like that's what happened in your third story. All right. Thank you, Zal, so much for sending in your stories. They were a pleasure to read, and I appreciate you. Moving on. Next story is by Micah T. I feel like Micah might have been a patron at some point. If not, I apologize. But if you are, what's up? I mean, what's up to everybody? But I sincerely appreciate people that are patrons and non-patrons. So, Micah says, Easter Bunny Shenanigans, and this is a good one. It's a little late, but, better late than never. So Micah says, I will be 32 in November, and for the last 25 years, I have tried to figure out what exactly happened. It was the night before Easter, and I was young, so the Easter Bunny was expected to make his rounds. What wasn't expected was the experience I had that night. Just an FYI, I was the youngest of 3, and I was extremely terrified of ghosts and scary things because my sisters tormented me. Dude, same. I was not like tormented by my brother, but he did like to watch the like murder like case files on television when I was little, and I don't know why we were allowed to watch that as children, but it terrifies me to this day. I cannot watch true crime things on the television. Can I listen to them in podcast? Yes, but TV, that's a no-go, my chanchos. So Micah says, just an FYI, I was the youngest of 3, and I was extremely terrified by ghosts and scary things because my sisters tormented me. They told me never to leave my ear out of the covers when I slept because an old lady would come and whisper in it at night, and never leave my hand out because she'll touch it. So I always fell asleep with my hand under the covers with a hole for air. Oh, I'm so sorry. That is not nice at all. Anyways, Micah says, I was just starting to feel like I was going to fall asleep when my door opened, and because my covers were thin, I could see through them. I watched a figure that was around 6 feet or so walk in and come to my bed. A 7 or 8-year-old has a silly imagination, but this figure was most definitely the Easter Bunny. I laid absolutely still. I wasn't paralyzed. I could move if I wanted to, and I remember that I could. It stayed in my room for maybe 5 minutes. It touched me on my left shoulder and tried to wake me up by shaking me lightly. I refused to come out from under the covers. When it walked out, I remained still and just fell asleep in fear. My ego told me it was my sisters playing a mean joke on me. The next morning, I told them what happened and asked them if they were responsible. They laughed at me, of course, but they said they were sleeping, which made sense because this would have happened around maybe midnight, if not later. My parents wouldn't have done something like that to me, so I never suspected them. I never experienced it again. I've always felt sensitive, and maybe that's why scary movies and fake Halloween house attractions scare me. Dude, same. Because I know they are real and possible. I've been trying to work on my empathetic claircognizant abilities and trying to connect with my spirit guides, which I'm not having much luck with. But they do try to help me not be scared. I have horrible ADHD and anxiety/panic disorder, and I literally cannot quiet and clear my mind, so it's been a struggle. Anyways, can y'all please help me figure out if this bunny sitch was actually something that happened? Was it a lucid dream? Was it just my 7-year-old imagination? Enter SpongeBob. Or was something else manifesting as the Easter Bunny to talk to me? Thank y'all for all that you do. Watching y'all's content definitely helped me in the scared department. Knowing that not everything that comes from the spirit world is scary and bad makes a huge difference for me. So thanks, Micah. Aw, you're welcome, Micah. Thank you for sending in your story and watching our content. I'm glad that it can make things be less scary for you because not everything's scary. Not all the things are scary. Okay, Easter Bunny. This is hard for me because this is like, for me, Santa Claus. Dude, I love Santa Claus. You can't tell me Santa Claus isn't real. Are the experiences that I've had most likely, and I know I'm talking about myself and not Micah, but it relates. Are the experiences that I feel like I've had as a child most likely my stepfather, who resembles Santa Claus? When I was a child, the real thing for my love for Santa Claus and what I feel would be a quote paranormal encounter. Yes, probably, most likely. But will I hang on for it forever that it is Santa Claus? Yes, I will. So, dude, I'm asking so hard for your spirit guides. I feel like it was your dad, possibly. I don't think that it was the Easter Bunny. I don't think it was paranormal. I really don't. And I'm so sorry about that. Because I feel like it was a father figure that did this. Maybe it was a father figure in spirit. But I feel like I have too much ego around it to answer it correctly for you. But the most strong impression that I get from my mediumship brain is that it was a father figure, whether it be real or imaginary. Why don't you ask your parents? I feel like you could. Why not? Just do it. Do it. Ask your dad. See if he did it. But I feel like it definitely was a masculine figure that did this. And I don't think the masculine figure was the Easter Bunny. It was either a real person or a spirit person. Okay. Thank you so much, Micah, for your story. And I'm really glad that you enjoy our content and sent in a story. If you guys want to send in a story, please go to the show notes below. There'll be a link for your own submissions. No story is too long. No detail is too much. I love reading your stories. So moving on. The next story is by Tavros. I think it's Tavros. Tavros H. Tavros says, Army House Haunting. Tavros' story is titled Army House Haunting. Tavros says, so my sister was married in 2015 to a man in the Army. They had gotten a house on base to live in while he would be out in the fields training the newbies. That's hilarious. Me and my brother would visit on weekends, so my sister didn't feel alone in the house. Also adorable. But sometimes we couldn't be there because of school, so a few times a week when she would be home alone, we would get phone calls about her hearing footsteps and chairs moving in the kitchen when she would be getting ready for bed upstairs. My mom was raised Catholic, so she would just tell my sister to pray and sometimes would have her on speakerphone so my mom could do it with her. My sister and her husband's bedroom was upstairs towards the neighbor's house as the houses were connected, but we never heard them now that I think about it. They had a spare bedroom that had a mattress on the floor on the right-hand side of the room facing the closet. My brother and I would sleep in there whenever we would visit. Side note, I want to mention that whenever my brother and I would be downstairs watching TV, we would hear what sounded like running and jumping in the spare bedroom. My brother would look at me, but I would brush it off and tell him that it's probably just the neighbors. Well, one night when my sister and her husband were out at a friend's house, I was sleeping on the mattress in the upstairs bedroom with the door closed, and my brother was sleeping on the floor with his back turned to me facing the wall. I had my legs hanging off the bed and I was awake listening to music. I had my headphones in, I was relaxed and was just drifting off to sleep. Suddenly, I felt a hand resting slowly against my left knee and it tugged hard. It was pitch black in the room. No lights were on. So I sat up fast and yelled out, "Oh, hell no!" and nearly slammed my whole body into the wall and flipped on the light switch so quickly it woke my brother up. I looked at him and started screaming, asking him, did he just touch my leg and pull on it? He looked at me confused and told me no. I explained to him what was going on and what happened, and I ended up just sleeping with the lights on that whole night. Tavros, you just got punked by some ghost kids, my guy. So this is not the first time that I've heard of army bases or military bases being like super haunted. I've had a couple people actually tell me, like army wives, that the base that they live on in the housing is haunted. And I think that just goes into the like same effect as like complexes or housing complexes, like apartments, condos, things like that. So many people live in such a small area and they're always moving in and out that energy can be either brought in by all of the various people that live there or that just stick around or are drawn in because of it. So I feel like the running and jumping and the chairs moving and stuff, I see 2, if not 3 children that talk about how they basically hang around there. One of them is related to a family, and I feel like this child might have passed away on base for different reasons, and she is more like current with her life that she lived, like the era that she lived in. While the other 2 kids, I feel like one might have passed in the 70s and he lived near the base and was friends with someone that lived there. And the other boy doesn't necessarily tell me when he is from, but the 3 of them hang out and play in your sister's apartment house, base, whatever you want to call it. And that is what you experienced. So just getting trolled by some ghost kids. Anyways, did you guys enjoy the listener stories? If you did, let me know in the comments below if you're listening on the PsycKicks YouTube's extra channel, or leave us a review or rate us if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But if you're interested in a reading, I am currently offering readings for, I think I have some availability still this April, and I have new availability and hours for May. So if you're interested in a reading, whether it be a psychic medium, a house, a pet, a plant reading, or a group reading with your friends, feel free to visit the link in the show notes. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and peace. We are your PsycKicks.